Hey there, good to see you. So last week I posted a video where I shared the step-by-step process that I go through whenever I prepare an image to make a print. And that includes making my own print or when sending that image off to be printed elsewhere. And that's what I was doing last week in that video. I was preparing an image to be printed elsewhere at a lab through WhiteWall. And well, since then I ordered a bunch of stuff for them. I got a whole bunch of test prints made. You may be able to see them on the floor back here. Some of them had a whole bunch made. There's some over here too. I'm flattening them all out with books and whatnot. Made a whole bunch of test prints. I also made a finished print, a finished acrylic aluminum Dibond print, mounted, framed, the whole bit. I'll show that to you in a little bit. And before I place an order for, like a very large and very expensive print, I ordered some product samples through WhiteWall, and that's what these 3 boxes are here. And I think these are really interesting, and I think there's a lot that could be learned from these, especially if you don't have experience printing on aluminum Dibond, or you've never printed, behind acrylic before. You do have to pay for them, but when you buy them, WhiteWall does send you a coupon code through email, so you can deduct the cost of the samples from a future order, which effectively makes them free. Second thing I want to mention, WhiteWall has nothing to do with this video. They've not paid me or sponsored me. I don't have any relationship with them other than, quite honestly, spending a lot of money with them. So let's begin with this box here. So in here there are a number of different examples of prints that have been mounted using aluminum Dibond and acrylic. Let's go ahead and dump them all out here. If you're not familiar with the terminology, if you've never made a print quite like this before, aluminum Dibond it's the backing material behind the photo. And when you put all these different elements together, it's kind of like a big sandwich of like all these different layers. In the back here, you have a very thin sheet of aluminum. That's why they call it aluminum Dibond. And then in front of here, we have, this is like a polyethylene black lightweight plastic that is, affixed to the front of the aluminum sheet. And then in front of the plastic, there is the photo print itself, printed on whatever type of paper you want. And then you have the acrylic in front of that. And all of this is glued and pressed and sandwiched together without any clips, without any braces holding these different, pieces together. It is very strong, very durable. You can't break this stuff apart. It's very different from like a traditional photography print, right? Where like you print a print on paper and then you mount it to some foam core and then you put some mat in front of that and then some glass and then a frame. At the time of this video, at least, you have the option of getting either Fuji Crystal DP2 when you're printing on color, or you can use Ilford black and white. Now, both the Fuji Crystal paper and the Ilford paper, they are glossy papers. But when you look at these, the gloss that you see, the gloss is actually the acrylic that is sitting in front of the print. That is what is creating that wet look, that gloss finish. Because if we just take the black and white print out for a minute and compare this to the exact same paper, Fuji Crystal DP2, mounted under matte acrylic glass, you can see how much of a difference there is, right? Definitely controls those reflections more. It absorbs more light. It feels like the best of both worlds. Like you get more of a matte finish on the front, more of a like a natural kind of like canvas appearance on the front, but with all the other qualities that you get with glossy paper. So it kind of feels like, to me, like the best of both worlds. Okay, now in addition to choosing between glossy and matte finishes for the acrylic, another option that you have when printing through WhiteWall is something known as an ultraHD print. I mentioned this in my last video. This is kind of confusing, and it's a little bit it's a little bit hit and miss in my opinion, because not only did I get these samples, but I also made some test prints where I printed an image using just the Fuji Crystal normal papers so I could see that, and I made an Ultra HD print of the exact same image. Actually, let me just grab it. The Crystal DP image, the hues are a little bit different. The blue is a little bit softer. It's not quite as saturated compared to the Ultra HD version, which is a little more saturated, a little more purple. Like it's just a little bit different. The color gamut just feels like a little bit wider. It's definitely a little bit richer, and I prefer the look of the Ultra HD paper. I think this looks really good. The thing I don't like though, and in the word of caution I guess I have for some of you if you're thinking about using it, I was very careful when I sharpened this image before I uploaded it. All around the outside of this dune here, there is a white halo. There is a noticeable white halo around it, and there's some darkening. There's a dark edge inside of the dune as well, which is a classic sign of adding some type of unsharp mask to the image in order to give it more depth and, you know, pop out the details a little bit. If you are processing your own image and you are adding your own unsharp mask and you are being very careful and very deliberate with your sharpening before you upload a file, you probably don't want additional sharpening on top of that. I thought it was just simply printing on a different type of paper, but it's actually doing some extra image optimization and adding additional sharpening. You know, if you're like me and resizing and sharpening, and again, I covered this in my video last week, but yeah, I would personally not use the Ultra HD print option. Then another option you have when choosing a paper type is what's known as a fine art pigment print. Now this is a different type of paper compared to the Fuji Crystal DP2 paper. This one here is a little more vibrant, a little more saturated. Like you can see that the like the orange on the basketball court here and the red is just stronger. It's brighter. The colors just seem to pop a little bit more, similar to like what you would see on screen. The saturation and the vibrance is just a little bit higher compared to the Fuji Crystal DP. So if you have like an image that has brightly saturated hues in it, a lot of vibrance, then it might be worth going with the fine art pigment print as an option. And this, by the way, is under matte. They also included a glossy in here as well. You know, similar to before, lots of reflectivity, lots of reflections on the glossy version compared to the matte. I love the matte finish. I think it looks really nice. And so this fine art pigment print paper option would be good for, you know, an image like this, for this type of image. Okay, then we have one final one in the box here, and that is an Ultra HD metallic. This has like a foil kind of finish. You know, you especially notice it like in the whites and the neutrals here, like they almost turn gold or kind of copper. And that's because of that high reflectivity, that sheen, like that metallic fleck that is in the paper, and that's what gives you that kind of look. Could be good for certain types of images, but that is one of the paper choice options that you have. Okay, then they also included some samples that show the different thicknesses of acrylic. So here's the one that we've been looking at here for a while. This one's a little bit thicker, a few millimeters thicker than that, and this one is the thickest. And as you can see, the plastic polyethylene sheet in between gets a little bit thicker as well in order to help support that acrylic in the front. You know, I mean, from the front, when you look at these, I mean, you can definitely tell that there's definitely more distance between the print, you know, like sitting behind the acrylic, and the acrylic that you see in front. There's more depth there. There's a greater perception of depth. Like it's kind of like something being under the water line. And, you know, with the thicker acrylic, it just feels like it's a little more underwater, so to speak. And there does seem to be like a little bit of additional shadowing, like a little more of like a vignette kind of effect around the edges of the acrylic here. And you know, it can definitely see it with this thicker one here, like up here around the edges of the acrylic glass. It feels like it's deeper, you know, down inside of the acrylic. Whereas with this one, you know, the light is a little more uniform from edge to edge. I mean, I think the thicker acrylic feels more premium. It feels a little more, a little bit fancier than just having a thinner sheet of acrylic. But I don't know. I mean, for me, I guess it's an aesthetic thing. It's a subjective thing, but obviously it'll make the print heavier. And this would especially be true if you're making a really large print. The thicker the acrylic is, the heavier the print is going to get for sure. So I'm not sure if it's necessarily worth paying extra for, but it is interesting. So there are, different options when it comes to thickness as well. Okay, then they included some black and white samples here, some additional ones, all printed using this Ilford black and white glossy paper. And again, it's, to me, like, the best of both worlds, because you're getting, especially with a black and white image, you are getting the depth, the deeper black point of a glossy paper, but with the finish of matte, because that matte acrylic is absorbing the light, and it's keeping it from looking as wet and as reflective as the other one. So you get all the benefits of glossy paper, but with a matte finish on the front. And I think this looks really, really nice. Now, again, like before, they also have ultra HD options, when it comes to printing. Here, it doesn't appear that they're using a different paper for this. It looks like they're just using Ilford black and white photo print paper again. But the ultra HD version does have just a little more clarity, a little more definition around just like all these tiny little windows here. I don't think it's any accident that they used this particular image, this particular architectural image here, because you can see there's more separation, there's more clarity, there's better like micro contrast and all those fine little details. And with this particular image at this size, it looks fine, but again, like I said before, I'm not sure that I would want WhiteWall to be adding some additional unsharp mask. I'd prefer to do this type of sharpening, this type of work myself before I upload an image. Then we have these additional aluminum Dibond mounts here. Now these are really interesting. Now we have the Ultra HD version here, which I'll come back to that in a minute, but check that out. Look at how different that looks. So what you're looking at here is just a regular print mounted to the aluminum Dibond. So you just get the sheet of aluminum, the black plastic in between, the photo print mounted in front. This one has a glossy finish that's been added to the front of the paper, while this one here is a matte finish. So, there's no acrylic going on here. It's not like the examples at the beginning of the video where you had glossy and or matte acrylic mounted in front. Here, there is no acrylic. The finish has such an impact on the image. This one looks, much richer. It has, much more, tonality in the image, broader range of black and, blacks to whites in this one here. While this one is much more subdued, much more like film noir or something. Like it's very cinematic looking. And I like both of them. I think both of them look really, really good. Really beautiful. My heart goes with this one here though, just because I just love the look of that. And I love the finish of it. I think it looks really, really beautiful. Now you do, by the way, have the option of just getting a print made using, other types of paper. Like you can print on Hanemule paper, and they will mount that to aluminum Dibond, and then they won't put any finish on it at all. Like they won't touch it. They're just gonna mount the paper to the aluminum Dibond, send it to you mounted, so that then you can do whatever you want with it. You could, use it as is. You could frame it, put some glass in front of it. Like if you just want to use it for the backing and that's it, and you just want the natural appearance of that paper, that is one of the options that you have. Now, again, you do have the option of, getting Ultra HD with these as well. This is the same glossy finish there, and this is the matte finish. And yes, it does pop out the details a little bit more, but again, like I said before, I'd rather do my own, sharpening. Okay, so I hope you enjoy. Oh, I almost forgot. I need to show you something. Hang on. It's absolutely huge. This is 40 by 30. Yeah, it's a pretty big print. But I am very excited about this. I am so into this. I think this is awesome. I have to tell you though that when this arrived at my door, obviously I knew exactly what it was, and I brought it down. I put it next to my desk over here, and it sat there for, I'd say probably like 3 or 4 hours before I felt strong enough to open it and to take a look at it, because This was a very expensive print to make, and I was very anxious about it. So this is the Fuji Crystal DP colored paper, obviously, with the matte acrylic finish in front of it. And you can see that it has very little reflectance, very little gloss in there. It looks like, you know, almost like canvas to me. Like when you look at it, you know, from a distance, it almost looks like a painting because of that matte finish. Very, very cool. And this is inset inside of a white frame. WhiteWall did this as well. And by the way, this is pretty much 1-to-1 from a Fujifilm GFX 100S, 102 megapixels. This was printed, I think, with maybe like 5% enlargement, something like only that much. Like I just had to bump it up in size just a little bit in order to get a 40 by 30 print. So this is almost 1-to-1. So when you look at this thing and you see it in person, like the DPI it feels like you're looking at a screen almost, because everything is very sharp, very detailed. You don't look at the pixels and see like big, kind of like blown up pixels or anything like that. I mean, this is the reason here why, you know, part of the reason why I really wanted a higher resolution camera was to make bigger prints like this. So I am in the process of making some bigger ones as well. And it is quite heavy. I mean, you know, when you know, even with that lightweight acrylic and the aluminum, it's a heavy print, but man, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful. I love it. I just love it. In last week's video, I was editing this image here. This is going to be the next large print that I make, and I'm so glad that I made a test print of it, because I realized once I got a test print, I mean, in the light right here with this big softbox on it, it actually looks pretty decent. I mean, because it's flooding it with light, but I felt that in general, when just viewing it like in a room, it was a little dim. And I also felt like I needed to boost the contrast and the color a little bit. So this is just a giant 40 by 30 test print that they made for me. It really didn't cost that much on the Fuji Crystal paper. So this is one of the next prints I'm going to make. And I'm also going to be making one of these as well. This is for my recent trip to New Mexico, actually. If you're interested in seeing some behind the scenes from this location here, I made a video while I was there, and I'll link to that. All right, that's it. Thanks so much for being here, everyone. I'll see you next time.